So anyway, I got this dog, Buck, from the shelter back in 2012. He was a rescue, some kind of shepherd mix, maybe, with lab in him. Real quiet, skittish around people. I mean, he'd been through something. You could see it in the way he tucked his tail whenever a door slammed. But I figured, a camping trip would be good for us. Just me and him. Bond a little. I didn't know that by the next afternoon, I'd be praying for that silence to come back. I had this old Ford Explorer at the time. Beige, rust on the wheel wells, but it ran. Threw my gear in the back, Buck in the passenger seat, and drove 3 hours to this quiet national forest. Not a popular spot. That's what I wanted. No people, no phones ringing, just trees and a fire and maybe a couple beers. We set up camp right by this little clearing. I pitched the tent, cracked open a Bud Light, and sat on a log while the sun went down. The fire was crackling. You know that sound, nice and slow. Pine smoke in my nostrils. Felt good. Buck lay next to me, head on his paws, watching the dark between the trees. I thought he was just relaxing. But looking back now, he wasn't sleeping. He kept lifting his head, ears up, staring into the same spot past the firelight. I'd call him, and he'd look at me for a second, then go right back to staring. I remember telling myself, he's just not used to the woods yet. First time out, probably just a raccoon or something. So anyway, I finished my beer, zipped him into the tent with me, and tried to sleep. The fire died down. The crackling stopped, and I lay there in the dark, listening to Buck breathe. He was still awake. I could feel his body tense against my leg. And then, nothing. Just the silence. Thick and heavy. I closed my eyes, told myself everything was fine. And then the next morning came in all wrong. You know that kind of fog where you can barely see 10 feet in front of you? Like the whole world just got erased. I unzipped the tent and stepped out into it. The ground was wet, that damp earth smell everywhere. My Casio watch said 7:30, but it felt earlier. Gray and cold. I figured Buck needed to stretch his legs. He'd been cooped up all night. So I clipped on his leash, walked him a little ways from camp, and then, I don't know why I did this, I unclipped it, just for a minute. Let him run around. He looked at me. Then he bolted, not like a happy run, like something pulled him, straight into the trees, fast, quiet, gone. I stood there, called his name. Nothing. Just rustle from the branches, like something moving deeper in. I told myself, he'll come back. He's just exploring. That's what dogs do, right? 10 minutes passed. I called again. Nothing. 20 minutes. I started walking toward where he'd gone. The fog swallowed everything. I pulled out my iPhone 4. No signal. Of course, not even a single bar. I checked the time on my Casio again. 30 minutes, and then an hour. I was really panicking now, like heart pounding, mouth dry. I thought about hiking back to the car, but what if he came back and I wasn't there? So I just stood by the tent, shouting his name until my throat hurt. And then I heard something, a rustle from the trees, low branches moving. Buck came limping out of the fog. His muzzle was wet, muddy, and he had something in his jaws, a big bundle of fabric dragging on the ground. He dropped it at my feet and sat down, wagging his tail once. I bent down. It was a sleeping bag, torn to shreds, covered in dark, wet mud, like it had been buried and dug up. I looked at Buck. He was panting, but his eyes kept darting back to the trees. I told myself, you know what I told myself? Probably just trash. Some careless campers left it out here. Animals got to it, that's all. But then I touched the fabric. It was cold and damp, and something about it made my skin crawl. I should have packed up right then. I should have leashed Buck and walked to the Explorer and never looked back. But I didn't. I stood there holding that torn sleeping bag, trying to figure out what to do next. I mean, Buck had brought it back like a prize. But yeah, it was disgusting. Muddy, ripped open, the zipper all bent and rusted. That metallic sound when I touched it. And a sour smell coming off the fabric like old sweat and dirt. I almost threw it back into the woods. But then I saw something on the inside tag. A name, written in black permanent marker, big letters, C. Voss. I just stared at it for a second. And then my stomach dropped. I remembered the sign at the trailhead. You know, one of those missing person flyers. Faded from the sun. A woman's photo, brown hair, kind of smiling. It said her name was Catherine Voss. She'd been missing since April 2012. And this was October. I guess I stood there frozen for a minute. Buck sat next to me, watching the trees. I kept looking at the name, then at the sleeping bag, then back at the name. But yeah, I told myself, come on, Leo, it's just a weird coincidence. Voss isn't that rare of a last name. Maybe some others see. Voss owned this sleeping bag years ago and lost it. Hikers lose stuff all the time. And the mud? Animals dragged it around. That's all. I mean, I wanted to believe that. I really did. I looked at the trailhead sign in my head. The photo, the date. April 2012, 6 months ago. My hands were shaking a little. I zipped the sleeping bag shut, that metallic zipper sound again, and tossed it by the tent. Buck whined. I told him it was fine. I told myself it was fine. But something felt wrong. The way Buck had run straight into the mist, like he knew exactly where to go, like someone called him. No, I was being stupid. I decided to just forget about it, go on the hike I'd planned, get my mind right. I grabbed my water bottle and leashed Buck, and I tried not to look back at the sleeping bag, but the name kept repeating in my head. C. Voss. C. Voss. And that sour smell stayed in my nose for the rest of the morning. So anyway, I decided to just push through it, not let some muddy sleeping bag ruin the whole trip. I mean, that's what I told myself. So I leashed Buck and started on the trail I'd mapped out. The forest got quieter the farther we walked. Not in a peaceful way, in a wrong way. No birds, no squirrels rustling in the leaves, just silence. And the smell of pine, thick and heavy, like someone had poured it over everything. Buck kept looking back. Every few steps, he'd stop, ears pinned flat against his head, staring behind us. I'd tug the leash and say, "Come on, boy." He'd move a few feet, then look again. I tried to ignore it. I chewed on a Cliff Bar and told myself he was just nervous because of the fog earlier. Dogs pick up on weather changes, right? But then I saw the trees. Fresh scratches on the bark. Deep ones, like claws or fingernails. Not bare scratches. Those are higher up. These were at waist level, long vertical gouges. The bark was peeled back in strips, still wet with sap. I stopped. Buck whined. I told myself, maybe an animal, a desperate one, maybe a coyote or something. Animals act weird sometimes. They get sick, they scratch trees, that's all. But the silence was really getting to me. I mean, you don't realize how loud a forest is until it stops. No wind, no insects, just my own footsteps and Buck's panting. I looked at my watch. It was only 2 p.m., too early to head back. I didn't want to be the guy who cuts his trip short over nothing. So I kept going. But I stayed on the main trail. I didn't wander off. And I kept my hand on the leash the whole time. By late afternoon, the sun started dropping behind the pines. I set up the Coleman tent in a clearing, same one from last night. Buck refused to go inside. He just sat at the entrance, staring into the darkening trees, whining low in his throat. I had to drag him in at dusk. He curled up against my sleeping bag, shaking a little. I unzipped the tent flap just enough to look outside. Nothing. Just pine trees and silence. I told myself, one more night. We'll leave in the morning. I zipped the flap shut and lay down in the dark. Buck growled, just once, soft. I told him to hush. But I couldn't fall asleep. I just lay there, listening to the silence outside, wondering what he was hearing that I couldn't. And then night really settled in. I mean, the kind of dark where you can't see your own hand in front of your face. I zipped the tent shut, crawled into my sleeping bag, and pulled Buck close. He was still shaking a little. I figured he'd calm down once we both fell asleep. But yeah, I couldn't sleep. Just lay there listening to the silence outside, like the whole forest was holding its breath. Then Buck started growling, low at first, deep in his chest. I reached over and scratched his ear, told him to hush. He stopped for maybe 10 seconds, then started again, louder this time. His whole body went rigid. I whispered his name. Buck, stop. He didn't stop. He was staring at the tent wall right next to my head. The nylon was maybe 6 inches from my face. I could see the moonlight faintly through the fabric, nothing else. I grabbed my Zippo lighter, just to have something in my hand. My heart was pounding so loud, I could hear it in my ears. That thumping sound. I told myself, maybe another camper. Someone walking around late. It happens, right? People get lost, they wander. But who wanders at 2 in the morning? Buck growled again, not at the tent wall anymore. Past it, through it. And then I heard it, a whisper, from outside, right on the other side of the canvas. A woman's voice, soft, gentle, like someone talking to a pet. She said, "Good boy." I stopped breathing. My whole body just locked up. I mean, every muscle went cold. Buck started barking, not growling now, full barking, lunging at the tent wall. I grabbed his collar, pulled him back. The whisper came again, closer, like her mouth was pressed against the fabric. "Good boy, bring it here." Bring what? The sleeping bag? The one with the name on it. C. Voss. I couldn't move. I couldn't think. I just sat there in the dark, holding Buck, listening to the silence that came after her voice. And then I heard something else. A crack, like a twig snapping, right outside the tent door. I stared at the zipper, waiting for it to move, waiting for her to pull it open. Nothing happened, just silence, and Buck's shaking body against mine. And then she whispered again. One more time, so close I felt like I could reach out and touch her through the nylon. "Good boy." But yeah, I couldn't just sit there anymore. I mean, my heart was slamming against my ribs. Buck was losing his mind, barking and scratching at the tent wall. And that whisper, that soft, gentle voice, was still out there, waiting. I grabbed Buck by the collar with one hand and fumbled for the zipper with the other. My fingers were shaking so bad I could barely grab it. And then I ripped it open. Nothing. Just dark trees and fog, low and thick, rolling between the pines. No one there. I crawled out, pulling Buck with me. My feet hit the cold ground. I looked left, right, behind the tent. Nothing. Just silence. And then the whisper came again. From the trees. Closer this time. "Good boy. Bring it here." I realized it then. She wasn't talking to me. She was talking to Buck. And she wanted him to bring her the sleeping bag, the torn, muddy one with C. Voss written on the tag. Buck stopped barking. He turned his head toward the trees. His tail went up, and he took a step forward. No. No way. I grabbed him, yanked him back. Then I ran to the tent, grabbed that disgusting sleeping bag, and threw it as far as I could into the dark. It landed somewhere in the fog with a soft thud. I didn't wait to see what happened next. I scooped up Buck, he was heavy, but I didn't care, and ran for the Explorer. My keys were in my pocket. I could hear my own footsteps pounding on the dirt, Buck squirming in my arms, the jingle of the keys on the ring. Behind me, I heard another whisper. Farther away now, but still there. Good boy. I reached the ford, fumbled with the keys, dropped them once, twice. The metallic sound of them hitting the gravel. Buck was barking like crazy now, loud, frantic. I finally got the door open, shoved him inside, jumped in the driver's seat. The engine turned over. I threw it in reverse, stomped the gas. Gravel sprayed everywhere, pinging against the undercarriage. I didn't turn on the lights. I didn't look back. I just drove. The tires squealed when I hit the main road. I kept looking in the rearview mirror. Fog, trees, nothing following. But I could still hear that whisper in my head, over and over. Good boy. Bring it here. And then I realized Buck hadn't brought the sleeping bag back on his own. Someone had told him to. Someone had been out there the whole time, watching, waiting. I drove faster. The forest got smaller behind me. But I knew, even then, that I wasn't really leaving it behind. I don't even remember most of the drive home. Just the white lines on the highway and Buck shaking in the passenger seat. My hands were still trembling when I pulled into my apartment complex, apartment 4B. I sat in the Explorer for maybe 10 minutes, just staring at the wall. Buck whined. I finally got out. The next morning, I drove back to the ranger station. Not the forest, the station, 40 minutes from my place. I told them everything. The sleeping bag, the name, the whisper. The guy behind the desk just stared at me. He typed something into his computer, shook his head, said there was no record of any Catherine Voss missing from that area. Not in April, not ever. I asked about the sign at the trailhead. He said there was no sign. I drove back to the trailhead myself. The post was still there, nails sticking out. But the flyer was gone, like someone had peeled it off. I wanted to believe I imagined it. But Buck remembered. He refused to go into my bedroom, wouldn't even cross the threshold. Just sat in the hallway staring at the closet door. Every night, same spot, same stare. I started sleeping on the couch. A week passed. I almost convinced myself it was over. I made coffee one night, left the mug on the counter, forgot about it until it was cold. Sat in the dark, watching TV with the sound off. Buck was curled up next to me, finally calm. Then he lifted his head, ears up, staring at the front door. I held my breath, listened. Silence, just the hum of the fridge. And then, from the other side of the door, a whisper, soft, gentle, the same voice. Good boy. I didn't move. Buck didn't bark. We just sat there in the dark, staring at the door, waiting for the knock that never came. But she knows where I live now. And she's still out there. So anyway, me and Derek, we wanted to do something special for our anniversary. 2 years together, And we found this cabin on some rental app. Looked perfect. Deep in the Pine Barrens, no neighbors, just woods. We thought it was romantic. It was November 2011. We took his Ford Explorer, drove out there with the radio playing that Call Me Maybe song. The one. The cabin was smaller than the pictures, but cozy. Wood stove? A porch? Quiet. Looking back, I should have realized that the silence wasn't peaceful. It was waiting. First night, we made dinner, opened a bottle of wine. Everything felt fine. Then around midnight, the lights just died. Every single one. I mean, the power cut completely. We sat there in the dark for a minute. Derek found his phone, used the flashlight. He went down to the basement to check the breaker. Nothing tripped. That's when we remembered the listing said there was a backup generator in a shed out back. But the key for the shed was supposed to be in the kitchen drawer. It wasn't there. We turned that drawer inside out. No key. I said, maybe I could get a signal outside, call the owner. So I grabbed my phone and walked a few yards into the trees. The pine scent was so strong it almost stung. And it was dead silent. No crickets, no wind. Just the snap of a twig under my boot. Then I looked down. There was a trail of cigarette butts, fresh ones, leading from the back porch of the cabin into the woods. Derek doesn't smoke. I don't smoke. Someone else had been standing on that porch. Recently. I ran back inside, told Derek what I saw. He tried to laugh it off, said, probably just a power surge from the storm. But there was no storm. The sky was clear. And then Derek picked up the flashlight. He said he was going to go check the shed anyway, see if maybe the generator was unlocked. He opened the back door. The cold came in. I watched him walk toward that shed, the beam bouncing on the ground. I didn't follow him. When he came back, his face wasn't right. He just looked at me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what we found next. I guess when Derek came back from the shed, I knew something was wrong. He walked slow. The flashlight was shaking in his hand. He didn't look at me when he got to the porch. Just stood there breathing. I asked him what happened, and he said, real quiet, someone's been living in there, and the door's open now. I mean, my stomach just dropped. But yeah, I tried to think straight. So anyway, I said maybe it was just a squatter, you know? Someone homeless who found the shed and crashed there for a few nights. Probably heard us pull up and ran off into the woods. That made sense. Derek nodded, but he didn't look convinced. We grabbed my phone and tried to call 911. Nothing. No signal at all. The Pine Barrens are like a dead zone. I held the phone up, walked around the cabin. One bar for a second, then gone. And then Derek said we should go back to the shed, together. He wanted to see if whoever it was left anything behind. The smell hit me first. Cigarette smoke. Strong, fresh, like someone had just put one out. Derek pointed his flashlight at the ground near the shed door. More butts, Marlboro Reds, the same brand. Dozens of them, scattered in the dirt. And inside the shed, we found a blanket. Old, gray, smelled like sweat. A few empty water bottles. A torn backpack. I whispered to Derek that we should leave right now. But he said the Explorer was right there. We could drive. So we turned to go back to the cabin. And then we heard it. A rustle. From the tree line. Not an animal. I know what deer sound like. This was something dragging, or someone shifting their weight. The sound of a boot on dry pine needles. Derek grabbed my arm. He pointed the flashlight toward the trees. Nothing moved. Just dark. I said, maybe a hunter or a homeless guy passing through. But I didn't believe it. My own voice sounded fake. Derek didn't answer. He was staring at the tree line. His mouth was open. And then the rustle came again. Closer, like we didn't sleep at all that night. I mean, how could you? Every time I closed my eyes, I heard that rustle again. Derek kept saying we should wait till morning. You know, daylight, safer. I agreed, but my skin was crawling the whole time. So anyway, as soon as the sky started turning gray, Derek said he wanted to double-check the shed. I told him that was crazy, but he said we needed to see if whoever it was left anything that could tell us who they were. And honestly, I didn't want to stay in the cabin alone. So I went with him. The air outside was damp, cold, and that smell hit me again. Rot, like something had been left to decay in the trees. I tried not to breathe too deep. Derek pulled the shed door open. It was stuck at first, then gave way with a groan. Inside, the flashlight showed us everything. A sleeping bag, unzipped. Empty food wrappers. A small knife on the floor, blade open, and the generator. Derek knelt down, looked at it. He said the fuel line had been cut. Clean cut, like with that knife. I picked up one of the wrappers. A can of beans. The label was torn, but I could see best by 2009. 2 years old. Whoever was out here had been eating expired food. Derek stood up fast. He whispered that we should leave. Right then. I nodded. We turned toward the door, and that's when we heard it. A metallic scrape. From behind the cabin, like something dragged across metal, or someone running a knife along the side of the generator. We froze. Derek pointed the flashlight toward the back of the cabin. Nothing. No one. Just the trees. He said, he must have heard us and ran deeper into the woods. But his voice was shaking, and I knew he didn't believe it either, because the sound came from behind the cabin, and the woods were in front of us. And then morning came. I mean, barely. The sky was gray, like dishwater. We hadn't slept. Just sat there on the cabin floor, backs against the wall, listening to nothing. So anyway, Derek said we needed to pack and drive out, right now. I didn't argue. We threw our stuff in the bags, didn't even check if we forgot anything, just wanted to be in the Ford Explorer and gone. We got to the car. Derek turned the key. Nothing, not even a click, just silence. He tried again. Same thing, the dashboard clock still read 3:17 a.m. The time the power went out. I mean, that clock wasn't even blinking, just frozen. Derek popped the hood. I stood behind him, looking at the trees. Damp earth smell, cold. He leaned in, then went quiet. "What?" I said. He pointed. The battery terminal cables were loose, both of them, like someone had taken them off and put them back just enough to look normal. Derek whispered that you need a wrench for that, a specific size. Someone had done this on purpose. And then I saw it, a figure, standing at the edge of the trees, about 50 yards away, just standing there, still, too still, facing us. Derek shouted. He yelled something like, "Hey!" The figure didn't move for a second. Then it just vanished. Gone. Like it stepped behind a tree, but there was no tree there. Derek grabbed my arm. He said, "Could be the cold killed the battery, and that was just a deer." But his voice was shaking, and we both ran back inside. I pushed the heavy dresser against the door. Derek checked the windows. We didn't say anything. Then we heard the first knock. And then the second night came. I guess we knew by then that no one was coming to help. No signal, no car, no neighbors. Just us in the dark. We took turns staying awake. Derek went first. I tried to sleep on the floor, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw that figure at the tree line. You know how that is. Your brain just won't shut off. So anyway, around 2 a.m., I was awake anyway. Derek had his back to the window, watching the door. And that's when we heard it. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, on the wooden porch outside. Not running, not sneaking, just walking. One step, pause, another step, like someone taking their time. I grabbed Derek's arm. He put his finger to his lips. We didn't breathe. Then a soft knock. Not loud, just 3 taps, like a visitor, like someone who knew we were in there. Then nothing. Silence. Derek stood up slow. He crept to the window and looked out. I saw his shoulders relax a little. He turned back to me and whispered that there was no one there. But when he turned away, I saw it. A wet handprint on the outside of the glass, fresh. The fingers were spread, like someone had pressed their palm against the window. But Derek had just looked. There was nothing there a second ago. I whispered to him to look again. He did. His whole body went stiff. That's when we heard the front door handle move. Someone trying it. Turning it slow, back and forth. I guess I said something like, "Just an animal, right? Raccoons can sound like footsteps." But yeah, I didn't believe it. Derek grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the bedroom. We shut the door, crawled into the closet, and pulled the door shut behind us. Inside the closet, I could smell something. Whiskey. A half-empty bottle of Jack Daniels was on the floor under a coat, not ours. We hadn't put it there. And then we heard the front door give way. Footsteps. Inside the cabin now. Coming toward the bedroom, and then the bedroom door burst open. I mean, the wood just cracked. The dresser we pushed against the front door didn't matter. He was inside. Derek grabbed the fireplace poker from beside the hearth. His hands were shaking. I could hear someone moving through the cabin. Slow, heavy, not saying a word. I ran to the back window, and that's when I saw it. A flashlight beam, bobbing in the woods. Someone else. Coming toward the cabin, like, oh God, there were 2 of them. Derek yelled that we had to go, now. He pulled the bedroom window open. It stuck, then gave with a screech. I climbed out first. Pine needles under my hands. That sour smell again, like sweat and old clothes. Derek dropped out behind me. We ran, no direction, just away. Branches hit my face. I couldn't feel my feet. And then Derek tripped. He went down hard. I heard him gasp. I turned around. A figure was on him. Grabbed his ankle. Derek screamed. I picked up a branch. Thick, heavy. I swung it, hit something. The figure let go. And then we ran again. I didn't look back. Derek was ahead of me now. We just ran until my lungs burned. Then I saw headlights. A road. Gravel under my shoes. A truck was coming slow. I waved my arms, screamed. The truck stopped. The driver leaned over. An older guy, John Deere cap. He said his name was Earl. Asked what the hell was happening. Derek pulled me into the truck bed. Earl didn't wait. He just drove. I looked back at the trees, saw one light. Then it went dark. So anyway, the police came. They searched the cabin and the shed. Found the blanket, the knife, the wrappers. But no one. Not a single footprint that didn't belong to us or Earl. They said it was probably nothing. You know, a drifter passing through, scared off by the truck. Derek had a bruised ankle, purple and swollen. But no proof, just our word. The owner of the cabin said he never gave out a spare key. He sounded confused on the phone. Then he got quiet and said we weren't the first to report strange things. But he wouldn't say more. I mean, we moved on. What else could we do? Went back to the city, back to work. Tried to forget. But you don't forget. 3 weeks later, I stepped out onto my apartment balcony. 4th floor. No fire escape. Just a small metal railing in the street below. Distant traffic, the usual city noise. And there, on the railing, was a single cigarette butt, Marlboro Red, still warm. I could feel the heat when I touched it. I looked down at the street. No one. Just cars passing. A guy walking his dog. A woman with groceries. No one looking up. I mean, how did it get there? 4th floor, no fire escape, no balcony above. I didn't hear footsteps. I didn't hear anything. But I knew. The same way you know when someone is standing right behind you. So anyway, I went back inside, locked the door, checked every room, and I still check every night. You know, just in case. So anyway, this was back in 2009. I just saved up for a Nikon D90, my first real camera. You know how it is when you get something like that. You want to shoot everything. Leaves, stars, your friends making dumb faces around a fire. Jenna suggested the trip. She'd found this spot online, somewhere in the mountains with an old ranger tower that had been abandoned for years. Marcus was in because he'd just broken up with someone and needed to get drunk in the woods. And me? I just wanted to take photos of the foliage. The colors were supposed to be insane that October. We took my Ford Explorer, drove up on a Friday afternoon. The road got narrower and narrower until it was just gravel and pine needles. I remember rolling down the window and smelling that sharp, clean pine. That's the smell you only get when you're actually out there, you know. Away from everything. Looking back, I think the silence should have warned me first. We found a spot maybe 200 yards from the tower. It was just this dark shape against the sky. 4 legs, a little cabin on top, windows all busted out. Marcus said he wanted to climb it right then. But Jenna said it was getting dark and we should set up camp first. So we did. Tent, fire pit, cooler of cheap beer. I got the fire going while Marcus cracked open a couple of bottles. Jenna was sitting on a log, telling some story about her job. Normal stuff. I mean, it was all so normal. I was playing with my camera settings, shooting the flames, the smoke, the way the light hit Jenna's face. Marcus kept throwing pine cones into the fire just to watch them pop. At some point, I looked up at the tower. It was just a black rectangle against the stars. No lights, no movement. Probably just a raccoon or something up there, I thought. Maybe a bird. I didn't think about it again that night. We stayed up until midnight, talking and laughing. Then we zipped up the tent and crashed. I should have taken a picture of the tower before I went to sleep. Just one shot. But I didn't. And then, I woke up shivering. It was that kind of cold that gets inside your bones. I checked my phone, 3 a.m. exactly. Jenna was curled up to my left, breathing slow. Marcus was on the other side, buried in his sleeping bag like a cocoon. I lay there for a minute, listening. Absolute silence. No wind, no animals. Just my own heartbeat in the damp, cold air seeping through the tent walls. I couldn't fall back asleep. You know how it is when your brain just turns on for no reason. I kept thinking about the stars. We were so far from any city lights. I'd been wanting to try a long exposure shot of the Milky Way all weekend. And there I was, wide awake at 3 a.m. with my Nikon right next to me. So anyway, I unzipped the tent as quietly as I could. Cold hit my face like a wet towel. I grabbed my camera bag, stepped outside, and zipped it back up. The fire had died hours ago, just gray ash and a few orange embers. I found my tripod where I'd left it, near the edge of the clearing. I remember stepping over an empty Red Bull can, mine from earlier, crushed it flat. I set up the shot, adjusted the ISO, focused on the stars, and that's when I looked up at the tower. There was a figure sitting at the top, legs dangling over the edge, swinging slow like a kid on a swing set, just a black shape against the night sky. I froze. I mean, my first thought was Marcus. He was always joking around. Probably climbed up there to mess with me while I was sleeping. I almost laughed. Like, good one, dude. I called out his name. Soft, so I wouldn't wake Jenna. No answer. The legs kept swinging. I whispered a little louder. Marcus, come on, man. Still nothing. Just absolute silence. And then, I just stood there. Camera in my hands, tripod between my legs, the damp cold air on my neck. I told myself it had to be Marcus. Who else would be up there at 3 in the morning? Marcus must have climbed up there to mess with me. So I raised the camera, pointed it at the figure. Thought I'd take a quick shot, catch him in the act, and then yell at him for being an idiot. I pressed the shutter. The flash went off. I mean, I swear, I still see it when I close my eyes. The flash went off, that loud click of the shutter, and for half a second, maybe less, the whole tower lit up like a lightning strike. It wasn't Marcus. The figure was an old man, long gray beard hanging down to his chest, wrinkled face, and pale skin, and he was staring right at me. Not surprised, not scared, just staring, like he'd been waiting for me to take that picture. I dropped the camera. I just let it fall. The tripod tipped over. Something cracked. I didn't care. I ran. The ground was uneven, roots, rocks. I tripped twice. My knees hit the dirt. The sour smell of wet leaves and something else, something old, filled my nose. I didn't look back. I unzipped the tent so fast the zipper broke. Marcus was lying on his back, wearing that vintage flannel shirt he loved. Jenna was curled up with her hood over her face. I shook Marcus. Hard. He groaned and said something like, "Dude, what the hell?" I told him, get up now, someone's in the tower." He sat up slow, rubbed his eyes, said he'd been asleep the whole time. I told him he was lying, that I saw him up there swinging his legs, that it wasn't funny. Marcus just stared at me, said he hadn't left the tent since we went to bed, said to check his boots. They were still wet from the creek earlier. He hadn't put them back on. Jenna woke up, asked what was happening. Her voice was groggy and confused. I told her someone was in the tower, an old man with a beard. She looked at Marcus, then at me. Then she whispered, "Maybe it was a reflection or a shadow." I shook my head, told her I saw him, clear as day. The flash lit up his whole face. Marcus asked if I still had the picture. I realized my camera was still outside, by the tripod. I unzipped the tent, stuck my head out. The tower was dark again, no figure, just empty space where the legs had been swinging. And then I heard it, a low creak, like wood bending under weight, coming from the tower. I grabbed my camera and ran back inside. Didn't look up, didn't breathe. Marcus asked what I saw. I just held the camera. My hands were shaking. I pressed the button to view the last shot. The screen lit up. But yeah, I couldn't shake it. Even before I looked at the screen, I knew something was wrong. The photo came up, and it was black. Completely black. Like the lens cap was still on. No stars, no tower, no figure, just nothing. Then I saw them. 2 pale dots, right in the center of the frame. Faint, but there. Like someone had taken a needle and poked 2 tiny holes in the darkness. They were uneven. One was slightly higher than the other. And they were staring, eyes, reflecting the flash. That was it. Just eyes. No face, no beard, no body. 2 pale dots floating in black. Marcus leaned over my shoulder, asked what he was looking at. I handed him the camera. Jenna pulled out her phone, an iPhone 3GS with a cracked screen, and tried to use it as a light. Marcus squinted at the display. Said it looked like a glitch. I told him it wasn't a glitch. I saw a man up there. An old man. The flash hit his face. I saw his beard. Jenna whispered that maybe my flash messed up, overexposed everything, burned out the details. I shook my head. The eyes were there. The rest was gone. Marcus handed the camera back. Said, "It's just a glitch, dude. Your flash messed up. Probably a reflection off the glass or something." I told him the tower didn't have glass. The windows were busted out. He didn't have an answer for that. We sat in the dark. The rustle of tent fabric, someone shifting their weight, maybe Jenna pulling her knees to her chest, broke the silence. Outside, a distant owl called once. Then nothing. I couldn't stop staring at the photo. Zoomed in on the eyes. They were blurry, but they were looking right at the lens, right at me. Jenna asked if we should leave. Marcus said we couldn't. It was the middle of the night. We had no flashlights except my headlamp. The road was 2 miles of gravel and drop-offs. He was right. But I didn't want to be right. I zipped the tent flap closed, checked the zipper 3 times. Then I felt it. That feeling. You know when someone's watching you from behind? Your neck gets cold, your skin prickles. I turned toward the tent wall. The fabric was thin, almost see-through in the moonlight. Something was standing right outside. We made it through the night. Somehow. When the sun finally came up, I unzipped the tent. The air smelled like rot of wet wood, that sour, decaying smell you only get from old forests after a cold night. My legs were shaking. I hadn't slept. Jenna asked if we should pack up. Marcus said we should check the tower first, just to prove nothing was there. I didn't want to go. But I also couldn't leave without knowing. So anyway, we walked to the tower. The stairs were metal, rusted orange. Every step made a metallic screech that echoed through the trees. Jenna went first, then me. Marcus behind us with a broken branch he was using like a club. The top was empty. Just dust, bird nests, old trash, beer cans from the 90s, a torn sleeping bag. Pigeon shit everywhere. No old man, no footprints, nothing. I almost laughed. Maybe it was a reflection. Maybe my flash messed up. Maybe I imagined the whole thing. Then I looked down at the railing, right where the figure had been sitting. There was a single long gray hair, curled like a question mark, caught on a rusty nail. I picked it up. It was coarse, real. I put it in my jacket pocket without telling the others. Marcus said, "See? Nothing. Let's get breakfast." We walked back to camp, packed the tent, threw the cooler in the back. I got in the driver's seat, turned the key. Click. Nothing. Tried again. Click, 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 click. The 1992 Ford Explorer didn't even crank, just that dead sound. "Battery's dead," Marcus said. "Happens all the time." Jenna asked if I left the lights on. I said no. I was sure. Marcus popped the hood, jiggled the cables, told me to try again. Click. So anyway, we were stuck there. Marcus said we'd have to wait for someone to drive by or hike out. But the nearest town was 15 miles. I looked back at the tower. The top was empty, but the hair was still in my pocket. And then I heard it. A slow creak, coming from the stairs. Someone was climbing up, and then, I swear to God. I spun around. The tower stairs were empty. No one there. Marcus asked what I heard. I said nothing. "Just the wind." He said, "It's just the wind, man. Calm down." But my headlamp was flickering. The battery was almost dead. Every few seconds, the beam would cut out, then flash back on. Made everything look like a strobe light. We couldn't leave. The car was dead. No cell service. So anyway, We had to stay another night. I refused to sleep. Marcus and Jenna crawled into the tent. I sat outside with my back against a tree, watched the tower, watched the dark. Hours passed. Nothing moved. Then I checked my phone. 3 a.m. I stood up, shined my flickering headlamp toward the tower. Slow footsteps, coming down the stairs, metal creaking, one step, pause, another step. I called out, said, "Who's there?" The footsteps stopped, then they started again, faster this time. I ran to the tent, dove inside. Marcus was snoring, Jenna was curled up. I zipped the flap, held the zipper tight. And then I heard it. Right outside the tent. Slow zip, like someone was pulling the zipper from the other side. One tooth at a time. I screamed, woke everyone up. Marcus grabbed his branch, unzipped the tent, shined his phone light outside. Nothing. No one. Just the dark and the trees. Jenna asked what happened. I told her someone was there, trying to get in. She looked at Marcus. He shook his head, said he didn't hear anything. But I heard it. And then a whisper, right outside. So close I felt it on the tent fabric, my name. Just my name. No one else heard it. But I know what I heard. We huddled together until sunrise. No one slept, no one spoke. When the light finally came, I unzipped the tent. The zipper pull was on the outside. We left at first light. I turned the key, and the Ford Explorer started right up. No click, no nothing. Just a clean ignition. Marcus said, "See? Probably just a loose cable." I didn't say anything. The drive home was silent. Jenna slept. Marcus scrolled through his phone. I kept looking in the rearview mirror. No one followed us. I never showed anyone the photo. I mean, what was there to show? It was just black. 2 pale dots. That's it. People would say it's a lens flare, dust, a glitch. So I deleted it. But I still see the eyes. Every time I close my eyes. Every time I walk past a dark room. Every time my laptop goes to sleep and the screensaver comes on. A photo of stars I took that first night. The stars are fine, but I always look for the eyes in the background. Months later, I put on that jacket for the first time since the trip. Stuck my hand in the pocket. The gray hair was still there. I don't remember putting it back. I don't remember keeping it. But there it was. Coarse, curled, real. I threw it in the trash. Took the trash outside. That night, I woke up at 3 a.m., a cold, staring at the ceiling. The silence of my apartment was so loud, it hurt. And for a second, just a second, I smelled pine. I guess some things don't have an explanation. I still wake up at 3 a.m. sometimes, not every night, just enough to remember. And last week I found another gray hair on my pillow. I live alone. I've always loved winter. You know, that clean, cold feeling when you're the only person on a trail. I took my 2012 Subaru Outback up to the White Mountains that morning. Had my thermos full of black coffee, my snowshoes in the back, and Mumford & Sons stuck in my head. I Will Wait, of all songs. The plan was simple. Hike 6 miles to a frozen waterfall they called the Silver Veil. I'd seen photos online. Ice blue, massive, like something from a fantasy movie. I wanted my own picture. I didn't know then that the man who walked in 15 minutes later would be the reason I stopped trusting winter. Or my own memory. So anyway, the weather was crisp when I started. Clear sky, no wind. I mean, the forecast said possible flurries, but nothing about a storm. I was about 2 miles in when the light changed. You know how the sky just sort of collapses? 1 minute it's blue, The next, it's this heavy, bruised gray. The wind came out of nowhere. Not a gust, a wall. Dry snow started pelting my face so hard, I had to turn my head. I should have turned back. But I kept thinking, it's just a squall. It'll pass in 20 minutes. It didn't pass. Within 10 minutes, I couldn't see 10 feet ahead. The trail markers disappeared. I pulled my hood tight and kept moving, but my legs were shaking. That's when I saw the lean-to. Hunters built it years ago. 3 walls, a dirt floor, a roof of rotting logs. I crawled inside, and the wind howled behind me like something breathing down my neck. Dry snow sifted through the cracks. I sat in the corner, hugged my knees, and tried to slow my heart. Just wait it out, I told myself. You've been in worse. But I hadn't. Not really. I was alone. Or so I thought. I heard the footsteps before I saw him. Crunch, 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 slow and heavy like someone dragging their feet through the snow. The wind was still screaming, but those footsteps were close. I mean, really close. I pressed my back against the wall and held my breath. Then a figure stumbled through the opening. A man, tall, bundled in a heavy green parka, snow caked on his shoulders. He shook himself off like a dog, and I heard the rasp of his zipper as he pulled it down to let out steam. He looked at me and smiled, easy, friendly, like we were old friends. "Man, I thought I was a goner," he said. His voice was calm, almost too calm. He told me his name was Mike. Said he got separated from his hiking group up near the ridge. They were supposed to hit the frozen waterfall too, but the blizzard hit and he lost them. He asked if he could sit and warm up for a bit. I nodded. What else was I supposed to do? He sat down across from me, close enough that I could smell something sour on his breath. Whiskey, I guessed. He pulled out a silver flask and offered me a sip. Said it would take the edge off. I told him no thanks, but I appreciated it. He shrugged and took a long drink himself. I guess I should have been grateful. Another person in a storm, safety in numbers, right? But something felt off. The way he looked at me. Not scared, not relieved. Just curious. But yeah, I told myself I was being paranoid. Half the guys up here carry flasks. He was just friendly. Then he unzipped his parka a little more to let his chest breathe. And I saw the patch. Bright orange, sewn right over his heart. It said, Browning Pro Hunter. I stared at it for a second too long. He noticed and laughed. You hunt? He asked. No, I said. Nice jacket. I lied. I wasn't thinking about hunting. I was thinking about a news story I read 2 weeks ago. November 2021, local paper. A hunter named Carl Owens was found hypothermic on this same mountain range. Someone had stripped him, took his parka, his boots, his gloves, left him to die. The suspect was never caught. But the article mentioned the stolen gear had a custom Browning Pro Hunter patch, the only one sold in the county that year. My stomach turned to ice. Like actual ice. I guess it's a common brand, I told myself. Half the guys up here wear Browning. It's nothing. But I couldn't stop looking at his hands, both still gloved. And I remembered the other detail from the article, the one that made my skin crawl. The suspect had a scar, thick, healed tissue across his left palm. From a bear trap chain, the paper said. Very distinctive. Mike leaned back against the wall and smiled again. So, he said, you up here alone? And then he asked again. So, you up here alone? I forced a laugh. No, my boyfriend's just down the trail. He's meeting me at the waterfall. I hated how my voice sounded. Too high, too fast. Mike just nodded. Didn't react. Didn't even blink. He just said, "Cool, cool," and took another sip from his flask. I mean, if I were a normal guy, I'd probably say something like "that's nice" or "lucky guy." He didn't. So I turned it around, asked about his group, where they started from, how many people. He waved his hand. I heard the fabric rustle of his sleeve and said, "Ah, they know to keep moving. We'll find each other at the trailhead." That was it. No names, no descriptions. Just a vague wave. You know, I told myself, he's just chatty. Some guys are like that. Not everyone is good with details. But my mind was already somewhere else. Back to my kitchen table 2 weeks ago, reading the local news on my laptop. A headline that made me put down my coffee. Hunter found hypothermic, gear stolen. Carl Owens, 52 years old. Local guy, been hunting those ridges for 20 years. Search and rescue found him curled under a fallen tree, barely conscious. He survived, but just barely. And someone had taken everything: his Browning parka, his insulated boots, his gloves. The police said it wasn't random. The suspect knew what to take. And then there was the scar. The article described it in detail because the victim's family offered a reward. Thick, healed tissue across the left palm, the result of an old bear trap chain accident. Very distinctive. Anyone with information? I felt my throat go dry. Actually dry, like swallowing sand. I heard myself click my tongue without meaning to. I glanced at Mike's hands, both still gloved. He was leaning back, looking at the ceiling like he was bored. He noticed me staring. "What?" he said. Then he smiled, easy again, and held up his gloved hands. "Cold hands, warm heart, right?" I laughed. It came out wrong. Too quick. I thought, it could be nothing. Scars can look alike. Fishing accident, maybe. Not every cut comes from a bear trap. But I couldn't stop looking at his left hand, the one he kept resting on his knee. He hadn't taken his gloves off once, not since he stumbled in. And the storm wasn't letting up. So anyway, he finally took off his gloves. He pulled a small pocket heater from his jacket, one of those little metal ones you fill with lighter fluid. I heard the snap of it igniting, then a faint metallic rasp as he unzipped his parka again to tuck the heater inside against his chest. But before that, he needed to warm his hands. He peeled off the right glove first, normal hand, then the left. And there it was, a thick, jagged scar running across his palm. Healed, but ugly, raised and white against the rest of his skin, like someone had taken a dull blade and dragged it through the meat of his hand. I couldn't look away. My whole body went cold, and not from the storm. He saw me staring. Of course he did. "Yeah, that one's old," he said, holding up his left hand like he was showing off a souvenir. He smiled. "Fishing knife, about 10 years ago. Slippery hands." I forced a smile back. My face felt like wood. "Look," I told myself, "maybe it really is a fishing accident. Scars can look alike. Not every cut comes from a..." But I knew. I knew because I remembered the news article word for word. The victim's family said the suspect had a scar from a bear trap chain, a specific accident when he was a teenager. The chain had wrapped around his palm and sliced it open. The article even quoted a doctor saying the scar would be permanently disfiguring, thick and jagged, unlike a clean knife cut. That wasn't a knife cut. That was a chain. I looked at his face, still friendly, still calm. He was rubbing his hands together, warming them over the little heater. He didn't seem to notice that I had stopped breathing. I thought I could be wrong. People get scars 100 ways. But I wasn't wrong. I looked at the walls of the lean-to. 3 walls. One open side facing the blizzard, No one else for miles. My phone had been dead for an hour because I was stupid enough not to bring a charger. I was trapped in a wooden box with a man who might have left another man to freeze to death. And he was still smiling at me. "You okay?" he asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I opened my mouth to say something. Anything. But the only sound was the snap of the heater and the wind outside. So anyway, I had to keep it together. You know? I couldn't let him see that I knew. I smiled, told him the scar looked gnarly, asked if it hurt. He shrugged and said not anymore. Then he put his gloves back on. I watched every second of it. Okay, I thought. Pretend. Just pretend. I asked about his group again, like casually. "So where did you guys start? The East Trailhead or the North one?" He said North. I asked for names, just first names. He paused for half a second too long. Then he said, "Dave, Tom, and Sarah." Like he was pulling them out of thin air. I nodded. Didn't push it. I guess he's just awkward, I told myself. Not everyone is good with people. But his eyes were flat. They didn't match his smile. I reached into my pack and pulled out a granola bar. Nature Valley, the crunchy kind. I offered it to him. "You must be hungry." He took it, and while he was messing with the wrapper, I scanned the lean-to. Dirt floor, rotting logs, a few empty water bottles in the corner. And then I saw it. Half buried near the back wall, a rusted ice axe. The head was orange with rust, the handle cracked, but the point was still sharp, like really sharp. I pretended to stretch, moved toward the back wall like I was trying to get comfortable. He was busy chewing the granola bar, loud crunches. I bent down, grabbed the axe by the handle, and slid it under my jacket. The metal scraped against the dirt, just a little sound. He looked up. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just cold. My legs are cramping." He nodded, went back to eating. I sat back down, the axe pressed against my ribs. Cold metal. I started talking about my boyfriend again. Made up a name, Brian. Said he was waiting for me at the waterfall shelter. Said he'd come looking if I was more than an hour late. Mike nodded. Didn't ask any questions. His eyes were still flat. The wind died. Just like that. 1 second howling, the next, nothing. Silence. The kind of silence that hurts your ears. I could hear myself breathing. I could hear him swallowing the last bite of granola bar. And then, in that silence, I heard the zipper. Slow. The rasp of his parka zipper coming down. Not all the way, just a few inches. He was looking at me. He stands up. "We should wait out the storm together," he says. His voice is soft now. "Closer, for warmth." He reaches for me. I don't think. I just move. My hand goes under my jacket. The rusted ice axe is cold against my palm. I swing it, not at him, not yet, but at the old Coleman lantern hanging from a nail above his head. Glass shatters. The sound is huge, a wet, violent crash. The flame dies. Darkness floods the lean-to. I can't see my own hands, but I hear him. Heavy breathing, a sharp exhale. Then he laughs. Not a scared laugh, not confused. A horrible, calm laugh. Like he knew I'd try something, like he's amused. I don't wait. I scramble toward the open side of the lean-to and throw myself into the blizzard. The snow is up to my knees. The wind is screaming again. I run. I don't know where. My snowshoe catches on something, a root, a rock, and I fall. The left snowshoe rips off my boot. I leave it behind. Get up. Keep moving. I hear him behind me. Footsteps. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Not running, walking, like he has all the time in the world. Then a crack, a branch breaking. Far enough away that I think, I hope, he's lost me. My lungs are burning. My face is numb. I find a fallen tree, a big one, with a hollow underneath. I drop to my belly and crawl inside. It's tight. Dirt and old snow pack against my cheeks. I grab handfuls of snow and pull them over me, cover myself, like an animal hiding from a predator. I stop breathing. The footsteps come closer. Slow, deliberate. Then they stop, 10 feet away, maybe less. I hear him breathing, heavy, steady. Then nothing. The blizzard ended at dawn, just like that. The wind stopped, the snow stopped, and the sky turned this pale, sickly blue. I stayed under that fallen tree for hours. I don't remember most of it. Just shaking, just the sound of my own teeth clicking together. Search and rescue found me around 9 in the morning. A guy named Dave and his dog. I was curled up like a baby, half buried, lips blue, one boot missing. They wrapped me in a thermal blanket and gave me hot coffee from a thermos. I told them everything. The lean-to, Mike. The parka with the browning patch. The scar, the flask. I told them he was still out there, that he'd followed me into the snow. They nodded, took notes, said they'd check it out. And they did. They went back to the lean-to while I sat in an ambulance, shivering under 3 blankets. When Dave came back, his face was weird. Polite, but weird. He said there was no flask, no pocket heater, no footprints in the fresh snow except mine. He said the lean-to was empty, just dirt, some old bottles, and a broken lantern on the floor. I told him about the ice axe. He said they didn't find one. I told him about the scar again, about Carl Owens, about the news article. He just looked at me and said, "Ma'am, maybe you dreamed some of it. Hypothermia does strange things to the brain." I mean, I wanted to scream, but I didn't have the energy. They drove me home that night. I took a shower so hot it turned my skin red. Then I sat on my kitchen floor and unpacked my gear. Wet clothes, broken snowshoe, my thermos, my backpack, and inside the front pocket, the one I never use, I found the flask. Silver, cold to the touch. I unscrewed the cap and a faint smell of whiskey hit my nose, something sour underneath it. I didn't put it there. I know I didn't. I turned it over in my hands. There was no note, no marking, just a small scratch on the bottom, like someone had dragged it across a rock. The metal was still warm,